Hey gang, welcome back to J Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 29 in the Cobra Jet series, also known as Slither. Now in the last video, I worked on installing the tail panel by welding it to the back of the car, basically the back of the floor pan assembly. And I also welded in the filler pieces that attach to the quarter panels. And I did those separately. I'm not at the point where I want to weld on the quarter panels, or I wasn't at that point, and I wanted to make those pieces fit so that I could move them or remove them and put them back on. The reason for that was I need to remove the roof and install the header panels that go from side to side at the front and the rear of the roof panel. So I can't put that on until I have the quarter panel set, and I couldn't put the quarter panels on until I had the tail panel in place, and I couldn't, you know how it goes. So there's a bunch of pieces that have to go in order, and as I say, sequence is scored. Now, in the last video I mentioned something else, and it was the crush bolts or crush spacers, however you want to label that, for the exhaust hangers in the rear of the car. I also demonstrated that a replacement frame rail does not have those crush pieces or those supports for the muffler hangers. They are not internal, and they also don't have any of the other pieces that a normal, say, Mach 1 would have. So I got this the other day, showed up, NPD, and here's the packaging from NPD, and these are the parts. Now these are going to go inside the frame rail, and what this does is it acts as a crush resistant piece. So whenever you put the exhaust hangers on and you tighten up the bolts, you could compress the frame rail and cause it to look odd, or maybe the thing will work loose later on. But with this inside, and this will get welded to the inside of the frame rail, this allows you to tighten up those bolts and not worry about that. Now unfortunately I can't do this as if it's a new build, let's say. So the Dynacorn floor pan comes as an assembly. You have the frame rails, the torque boxes, the floor pan, the transition panel, everything is already in place. If you were doing this from scratch or putting in frame rails, it would be easy to put these in, or you could put just a piece of pipe inside of there and weld that in, and then put your trunk pan with the drop-off panel built in and cover that up and not be a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do it a different way, because there's really no other way for me to do it at this point. I'm going to open up the back of the floor pan right above where these go, open that up like cut it and open it up like a can lid, push this down inside, weld it in place, and then close that piece back up and weld it back together. Unfortunately, that's all I can do at this point, but I'm going to make it look good. Yep. Okay, so let me get started on that, and you can follow along. So here's where we're at. This is the jig hole that lines up with the threaded or piece of all thread I have running up off of my jig. And basically, if I measure off of that to what would be the center of these holes, and that's just coming back. I know I can't really get my head up in here to show you very well, but it's 1.25 inches. So the center line is basically right here for this. Okay, so I want to be able to get this inside of there. Now I don't want to cut into this section because it's already got a transitional shape to it, so I'm going to cut behind that, and essentially I need enough room to get this whole assembly in here. Now what I could do, if I wanted to make the hole a little smaller, is I could trim this off slightly, take off half of that, and it wouldn't make much difference, but I need to get this in there. So if I am planning to come back to about there, and with the width, just want to make sure I have enough room. It's not going to matter at really any point how wide it is, because you're cutting the same length. So we're going to go somewhere in that range. Now there's a variety of ways this can be done. I'm just going with something pretty basic here. I guess I could do it either way. I could bend it this way as well, but it's not going to matter. It's not really going to matter at all. So let's go with that. And I also have to think that I need to get in there with my welding gun. Oh yeah. I think that's going to work. I just have to get it in the right spot. It's going to take a little pushing around, I think. That's a snug fit though, which is what it's supposed to be. Ah, okay. There's some weld slag in there from when they built this. That's going to interfere slightly. Yeah, I'm going to have to do a couple different things. As I'm trying to manipulate that, my jig post is in the way slightly, so I'll have to bring that down, and that just take a little bit of adjustment because the post is right there. I don't know how well you can see that, but I think it's just enough in the way. That's a snug fit. I didn't expect to see, you know, when I dropped that down in there, I didn't expect to see all the weld slag in the way. Who knew? Few massage tools. Now the biggest thing I'll have to do is make sure that I can get a bolt into both of those holes. Whoop. I can see it. I can see where I'm at. I'm not sure exactly what size the bolt's supposed to be. Move that bottom one just a little. Almost lined up. It's like one side's wanting to line up, but the other one isn't. Now the crazy part is, probably not even going to be using bolts this big. I don't have any short ones. I mean, that's going through both holes pretty easily. Yeah, that one's really good. This bottom hole, the plate that's holding the spring perch mount is not welded in exactly where it should be. So that's creating a little bit of a bind. There it is. You couldn't even put a bolt this big in because of that offset. What I'm talking about here is right there. This one is fine, but this one it's just a little bit off. So yeah, I think we're good. All right. But you can see it's a tight space in there. And my jig bolt would probably almost interfere with that if it was in there previously or prior. But now all I have to do is just weld kind of this edge here to keep it in place. I could even do some on the inside of the opposite rail if I wanted to. And then close it back up. Okay, so I have both sides in, ground down, very happy with that. I did the test fit with the bolts, everything fits. And now what I want to do is install the bumper brackets. Now I did clean these up and put some primer on them, self-etching primer. I also drilled holes where these mating flanges line up with the holes, or with the, I made holes to line up with the flanges, let's put it that way. And so, do a little more alignment right there, and I can weld that in. I also drilled these holes out completely. So, same thing, I'll spot weld these in place, put a bead across here, just like they did when they built this. And same thing with this side. So get that in place and weld it directly to the tail panel, and that'll make everything good and solid. So the bumper brackets are welded in and welded to the tail panel. Obviously there'll be some more grinding going on here. That's really not going anywhere. At least not without some effort. So this side is in. I did weld these back edges, and I also, just because I wanted to, welded the sides of the rear pieces. Nothing wrong with a little extra weld. And then I even went and did a little bit of weld against the tab. Now, I know it's all welded, but these, this tail panel, this is a double layer. So there's another piece of metal inside of this, and it's part of this, this reinforcement and carrier for the tail light. So when I'm welding that, it's a little deep in there, and even though I'm making good contact, and you can see the penetration all the way through, I just wanted to add a little bit of weld just to make it stronger. Now I think the next thing I'm going to do is pull the header panels out, get those cleaned up, treated, and get those welded back in, and then we'll see how far I can get from there. Alright, I didn't get quite as far as I wanted to this week. You know, I had some other things to deal with beyond the garage, but still I did get some work done, and progress is progress, right? So even if you're not getting a lot done, don't feel that's not good. Just get something done on your project, and every step is a step closer to the finish line, right? Okay, so as I said, I did get some stuff done. I got the crush tubes welded in the frame rail. I got the bumper brackets welded on, and I cleaned up the rear header, treated the inside of that with the rust encapsulator, and then welded it back in place. Now the plan at this point is to finish the rust encapsulator on both the upper side and the lower side of that header panel, and also I'll pull the front one back out because it's not welded in yet. Do the same thing, treat it, get it in place, and weld it in. Now ultimately what this leads to is what's going to be coming very soon, and that's putting the quarter panels on for the last time. So there is prep work involved with that. I will have to be punching holes along the flanges and prepping the mating surface where it meets the rocker panel down here at the bottom, making sure I have good contact with all of that. And I have to get those little curve pieces up here in the quarter window space. So right about there, somewhere in there. You know what I'm talking about. So I got to get those in place as well and make sure all that stuff fits just right before I weld the quarters on, and then the roof is on. So really making good progress in my mind, and I'm very happy with everything at this point. So I'm hoping you've been enjoying this series, and I especially want to thank you for following along and leaving comments and thumbs up. All that sort of thing helps with the channel. I especially want to thank my patrons who continue to support me. And if you're interested in becoming a patron, there are links in the description below. I also will point out there are links for all the tools that I demonstrate in these videos. So if you're interested in buying something like a welder or a power tool from Evolution Power Tools, stuff like that, or anything from Amazon, I appreciate it if you use the links down below to help me out as well. But that'll be the end of this video. Now I will say I hope you all have a Merry Christmas. And I'm looking forward to sharing some more videos with you. I hope to have something out next week. It may be a little bit different than what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to organize that, but we'll have to wait and see, won't we? So thanks for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya. Alright, I didn't get quite as much done as I wanted. That sounds really bad. It didn't sound right. Let's try that again.